Hello, everyone, and welcome to Amateur Foreign Policy. Today, for our first episode, I will be discussing our recent tensions with Russia and Ukraine. Now, there is quite a long history behind why these two countries seem to be going at each other, or hopefully not, but possibly soon be going after each other. The first place to start would be the fact that they were the first two signatory countries of the Soviet Union, and ever since then, there's been a fraught history between the two, World War II and all that. I can go into greater detail on that in a separate video if you want, but for this video, I kind of wanted to focus on current tensions. Now, there's a number of reasons why Vladimir Putin may feel emboldened to move in on Ukraine, and primarily, I believe that the current administration, that is in America, the Biden administration, is not really quite sure how to respond. I believe the American public is a little bit wary of another conflict involving American soldiers after what can only be described as a complete bungling of the withdrawal of Afghanistan. And they're kind of being a little cautious right now. Secondly, we're a little distracted with COVID. In case you haven't noticed, Russia has these issues as well, but our numbers are far worse. And as such, I feel Putin might be a little bit more inclined to act now while America is distracted with its own domestic problems, dealing with the pandemic. Russia also had very good a new staging ground in Syria where they got to test their equipment, get combat experience for their troops, involve themselves in citizens of another country. And it was kind of a good way to gauge how their forces were doing. If you recall, back in 2008, Russia led a military incursion into the country of Georgia to ostensibly protect people in South Ossetia, which is a breakaway province of Georgia. And that war, while it did go in Russia's favor, exposed a lot of issues with their military. Their equipment was dilapidated. The soldiers were not trained very well, ill-equipped. There were stories of Russian commanders on the ground not actually having proper radio equipment, so they would actually have to use phones to call back to headquarters or to individual units to relay orders. So I believe Putin got a good long look at how exactly his military was back in 2008, and that might explain why it took them so long to move in on Ukraine. They wanted to shore up their weaponry, both air, land, and sea, and they wanted to move forward with new weapons platforms. And now, obviously, Ukraine is not exactly a very powerful military. They don't have the capability to withstand an assault by Russian forces. However, I'm sure Russia wanted some aces in their sleeves in case Europe or America got any crazy ideas to coming to Ukraine's aid in case of an invasion. Case in point, Russia is one of the, I believe, 2 or 3 only countries at this moment who have functioning hypersonic missiles. This is a big deal because it can evade radar equipment and anti-missile batteries that will be able to shoot down these weapons. Not completely, mind you, they're not foolproof, but they are certainly a big stride ahead of what was currently available. Whether or not it will test these missiles in a conflict with Ukraine is another matter. Obviously, I don't think they're going to be using nuclear weapons. That would be overkill. Although they just did hold a military drill involving nuclear weapons. And furthermore, it's interesting to note that Ukraine has always been sort of on the fringe between Russia and the West. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of Russian speakers and those you can consider ethnically Russian. I use that in quotes because, well, Russia came from Ukraine in the first place. It used to be Kievan Rus back in, I believe, 800 AD. So Russians are really Ukrainians. Just don't tell them that. I kid. But So there's always been they've kind of been drawn towards Russia, and then they've been drawn away from Russia, and part of that would be due to their experiences under the Soviet Union. And so I think President Zelensky, who is the current president of Ukraine, is trying to walk a fine line between appeasing Russia in a sense and also trying to get the heck away from Russia. The issue is Ukraine for a while has had a faction in government and among the people that wishes to embrace the West and join NATO. Now, NATO would give Ukraine pretty much the ultimate protection because of Article 5. Now, Article 5 stipulates that an attack on one is an attack on all. So if Russia were to move in on Ukraine and Ukraine was a member of NATO, then all of NATO would respond to a Russian aggression. Obviously, Russia doesn't want this. It's seen NATO creep to its doorstep, essentially. There has been a lot of shoring up of military equipment in the Baltic states, that'd be Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, over the recent years, especially after the 90s. In the 2000s, that buildup really started to occur, and now they have pretty sophisticated anti-tank and anti-air weaponry. So I believe Putin's pretty concerned that, well, if Ukraine joins NATO, then he's got nothing left, and he's just going to be completely surrounded on all sides by NATO. Now, this is interesting to bring up because I believe this is Putin's and Russia's in general biggest fear, is being completely and totally isolated. In Soviet times, they had, obviously a whole constellation of friendly nations and, states that were essentially under their control. But now they're pretty much alone by themselves. And it's interesting now to see them pivot towards China, because China has ambitions in Taiwan, and we'll probably get to that in another video. But birds of a feather tend to stick together. Both of them have territorial ambitions, and I definitely anticipate them drawing even closer in the coming years, including swapping of military technology, conducting joint military exercises, and a lot more. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. So this has just kind of been my general thoughts on what's happening between Ukraine and Russia. Now, the ultimate question, will Russia invade Ukraine? Now, I'm filming this at a time when pretty much everyone and their mom is saying that Russia will invade Ukraine. I think it'd be a very dumb move on Putin's part, primarily because of sanctions and the fact that while Putin himself might not be affected too much by some sanctions, there are a lot of Russian oligarchs that do business in both Europe and the United States who might not like their country being taken off the market, so to speak. Now, there are obviously ways to move money around and proxies and so on and so forth, but it would be a very big inconvenience, and that's the biggest threat to any regime, is losing the support of your upper class, particularly when it comes to those who also hold levers of power. So I don't know. One could say, "Oh yeah, of course he'll move in on Ukraine. It's ripe for the picking," and it is. If he wanted Ukraine, he can go grab it today, and the country would probably fall in a matter of a couple weeks to a month, I would imagine. But I don't think it's smart for him to do that. And I don't think Putin's crazy either. That's another thing I've been hearing is, oh, he's just a megalomaniacal dictator weirdo who just wants to grab all this land. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think he's that type of person. I think he's just trying to scrap together some sort of bulwark against NATO. And he also has Belarus for that, which I might get to in another video, because the relationship between Russia and Belarus is also very interesting. So I guess if you want my ultimate prediction, boy, I don't know. It's a toss-up. Do I think he will do it? I think he's probably put in too much resources to just back out now. It's a lot of wasted time, money, and troops just sitting around. A lot of missiles just sitting around. I think he'll make a move. I don't know whether it be a full invasion, taking the capital Kiev, or whether it'll be a further incursion in the east through the Donbass region. But I do think there's going to be something happening. There's going to be an incursion. Full out invasion, not sure. Incursion, I'm pretty almost 100% certain that's going to happen. So yeah, that's my general thoughts. Let me know what you think. This is all very amateur. My first time attempting to really dive into a YouTube video. I'm sure I will get around to editing and all that fancy stuff somewhere down the line. But for now, I just wanted to give a shot. So let me know what you think. And you can also email me at amateurforeignpolicy@gmail.com with video ideas or tips or suggestions. I'm always willing to listen. Or you can drop a comment in the comment section below. Thank you very much, and have a good day.